Hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today I present to you the first part of the TTS version of Deku. If you enjoy, please consider liking, commenting, and / or subscribing down below. That being said, let's get into the video. Chapter 1, Deku's debut. Izuku hiked a duffel bag over his shoulder, stepping into the hospital. He just nodded at the nurse, having been there for a month now, he knew where he was going. Besides, any opportunity to avoid talking to the quirkist secretary was a good one. His mother has stage 4 cancer, which means she needs to stay in the hospital. It wasn't an ideal situation, but they're both trying to make the most of it. The 14-year-old managed to get a job at a cat cafe, but it was a part-time job fit around school. His mom managed to sign a form to transfer Izuku to an online school, which means he's now out of Hell Aldera Junior High. He continued his hobby of analyzing and running after heroes, but his dream of being a hero was slowly getting dimmer and dimmer. The longer his mom was in the hospital, the more his dream felt like a delusion. But now there was a skip in his step. He had a breakthrough this morning, and the ashes of his old dream lit the inferno for a new one. After all, he can't be a hero, but he can still help the heroes. "Hi Mom." Izuku grinned, dropping a duffel bag on a chair and leaning over. His mother grabbed his cheeks, pulling him close and pressing a kiss on his forehead. It was tradition. "Izuku." His mother bundled him into a hug, then finally let him sit down in the chair next to her. She still held onto his hand, and he let her. She was a little pale, but had more color than his last visit. It looked like she was getting better. "How are you doing, Mom?" he asked. His mother smiled, tired but genuine. "The doctors say I'm getting better. Just you wait, Izuku, I'll be out of here in no time. Now what about you? You look chipper today." Izuku smiled brightly, scooting closer to his mom. "I don't want to be a hero anymore," he said, pulling out an envelope with an official-looking seal on it. "But I think I know what I want to do instead." She took it from his hands, looking at the document with interest. Her eyes widened as she read the letter. Izuku was fidgeting in his seat, so he started rambling. "It's just, I've been analyzing heroes and villains for forever, and I didn't know that you could even be paid for that. People got paid to do what I do as a hobby, and it's fitting, you know? Because if I can't be a hero, I can still help the heroes." His mom folded the letter and put it back in the envelope, then leaned forward and pulled her son into a warm hug. "I'm so proud of you, sweetie." Izuku cried happy tears into his mom's shoulder as she cried into his. Midoriya jeans, after all. He and his mom spent a little bit of time talking about what he'd have to learn to do, before he had to go to work. The next 3 weeks passed by in a blur, between keeping up with online school, increased hours at the cafe, and the encryption classes he signed up for. It was busy but fun, the challenge hurting his brain in a good way. He was thankful that his dad's child support payments still come, they were enough to help cover rent and the new classes. He was aware the payments would stop eventually, but that was a problem for future Izuku. Future Izuku was apparently present Izuku, as he stared down at the email in his inbox. Basically saying that his father was going to stop sending child support payments since he was essentially taking care of himself. Fun. But Izuku was nothing if not stubborn, so he ignored it for now. Pulling out the green manila folder with the encrypted analysis on midnight, he folded a letter inside and got up to make a delivery. Kayama Nemuri, the pro hero Midnight, was not expecting the notification that something was dropped off in her P.O. box one Sunday morning. Or more accurately, middle of the night. At 2 a.m. She has fans, but this is just ridiculous. All the teachers had a P.O. box at the post office nearby the school, since most of their agencies were too far to reasonably be expected to collect mail every day. Nemuri herself usually only makes the trip to her agency about once a month, just to make sure nothing was on fire and that everything was handled. At least she was already awake grading papers. Maybe it was a student dropping off their essay late? She'd have a small talk with her students about how skipping sleep decreases the quality of their work. Anyways, she might as well go get it. She took a quick look at herself in the mirror, to make sure no one would recognize her as Midnight. She wore a simple black overcoat, a pair of ducky pajamas, and a pair of ratty sneakers that she's had for forever. A pair of glasses were perched on her face, and her hair was pulled up into a messy ponytail. Satisfied that she wouldn't be recognized, she stepped outside, starting to head towards the post office. Thankfully the teacher dorms weren't too far. All in all, it was a pleasant walk. The night air was cool yet refreshing for being in a stuffy apartment all night. The few people around didn't spare her so much as a passing glance. It was nice. Stepping inside, she gave a tired nod to Yoshimura. She's been there often enough to know the night shift's name, and slogged to her P.O. box. Expecting to see a hastily written essay, she frowned when she saw a green manila folder. Taking a look around, she hesitantly pulled it out, flipping open the folder. There was a letter, followed by 20 pages of encrypted papers, with a few sketches of Nemuri's hero persona and her equipment scattered throughout. To stave off the growing headache, she flipped back to the front and read the letter. To Midnight-san. Hello, this is Deku. I'm a new analyst trying to break into the scene, but I don't have an attachment to an agency or the connections to start my career. So I've sent you an analysis of you, your quirk and fighting styles, for free. This will be the only freebie. I've got rent to pay after all. The analysis is encrypted for safety purposes. I don't know how secure a P.O. box is, but I burned the encryption code a long time ago. I trust you or someone at your agency can decipher it. Feel free to respond with feedback. I'm a new analyst after all. I'm aware there could be mistakes or oversights. The P.O. box I will be using professionally is XXXX in Musudafu. I only deal in paper. Online leaves too much of a trail. Thank you for your time. Deku. She raised her eyebrows. This was certainly not what she expected when she opened her P.O. box. Quickly taking her leave, she pulled out her phone and opened up the group chat. UA. Teachers and Company, 2:35 a.m. Too much perfume, midnight, lie detector, Tsukachi, eraser dad, eraser head, giggles and shit, Ms. Joke, and All Might JR, Night Eye, are online. Too much perfume, holy shit. Eraser dad, whatever it is no. Lie detector, is this a serious holy shit or a non-serious holy shit? Too much perfume, I'm not even gonna argue WURNBC shit's real. All Might JR, what happened, Nemuri? Too much perfume, I get a notif of a drop-off in my PO box at 2 in the goddamn morning. Giggles and shit, goddamn. Too much perfume, shut. Too much perfume, anyways. Too much perfume, I open it to find a green manila folder to find a letter from a new analyst and like 20 pages of encrypted analysis. Lie detector, who's the analyst? All Might JR, and why not email this to you? Especially if the papers are already encrypted. Too much perfume, called themselves Deku. Too much perfume, said they dealt with paper only, leaves less of a trail. All Might JR, that's suspicious. All Might JR, have you deciphered it yet? Too much perfume, no I'm on my way humifits flow #fui. Giggles and shit. Too much perfume, I ran into a pole. Giggles and shit, watch where you're going then. Nemuri rolled her eyes, pocketing her phone and picking up the pace. She's home in a brisk few minutes, taking the time to really quickly refill Tamaman's water bowl and put her on her shoulders. The ball python uncurled in her presence, wrapping around her neck and shoulders as she sat down in front of the desk she'd been grading papers on. She pulled out her phone, opening to an app specially designed by Nedzu for deciphering encryptions such as the one currently on her desk. Usually only Mirai or Shouta ever used it, but it was good to have for situations like this. Going through and taking pictures of all the pages, they were double-sided, Kami, and the letter for good measure. She hummed a wordless tune as she waited for the app to process. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the pages. The analysis was broken down into various sections, from questions and theories to ideas for improvement to costume and support item suggestions. Strengths, weakness, ways to exploit and counteract those weaknesses, and even ideal missions for the R-rated hero to be on. The information was a rival to Nedzu himself. The thought of Deku and Nedzu meeting sent a shiver down her spine. UA. Teachers and Company, 2:51 a.m. Too much perfume, so I deciphered it? Giggles and shit, spill the tea. Too much perfume, Deku.zip. Too much perfume, the pages were double-sided. Giggles and shit, holy shit. Lie detector, this info is dangerous in the wrong hands. Eraser dad, at least they're aware of how dangerous this knowledge is. Too much perfume, this info rivals most pros. Giggles and shit, I want one. All Might JR, we must find out who he is. Lie detector, at least he seems earnest. Too much perfume, I'm gonna send him a letter back. Giggles and shit, get one for all of us. Too much perfume, I will. Too much perfume, even the morning crowd peeps cause I know they won't leave me alone if I don't. Eraser dad, is she said to get him one too. Eraser dad, he's reading this over my shoulder. Giggles and shit, aw. Giggles and shit, true love. Nemuri put down her phone, cracking her knuckles and pulling out some paper and an envelope. She had to be quick about this. After all, she did still have papers to grade. Chapter 2, Call and Response. Izuku was on his morning jog, some pre-quirk music playing in his ear as he ran his usual route to the post office. Yes, it's foolish to think he'd get a response after only a few hours, but he definitely wasn't counting, but he was too excited not to check. His usual route consisted of running from his apartment, to the small cafe around the corner for breakfast and a coffee, to the post office, and then past Dogabo Beach to go back home. He took sips of his coffee, black with a couple of espresso shots. He didn't get any sleep last night, as he entered the post office, waving at the receptionist and moving to his box. He just blinked in confusion at the box. There was the usual spam mail for his mom, consisting of lawn care pamphlets and baby ads, but there was an official-looking envelope with a UA seal on it. He grinned, dumping all the other pamphlets and ads into the recycling and clutching the letter close to him. Draining the rest of the coffee and dropping the empty cup into the garbage, he ran back home, giddy with excitement at a response. And so soon. He was physically vibrating as he pulled out his mom's letter opener, being careful not to cut the letter in his haste. Opening it up made his eyes widen. To Deku-chan. This analysis is absolutely amazing. It's better than most pro analysts. Please send me your rate so that I could pay you for this freebie. You absolutely deserve it. Who are you? Who taught you how to analyze like this? At this point I'm considering firing my current analyst and hiring you instead. For being new to the scene, you have incredible intelligence. It's comparable to Nezu himself. Please don't tell him that. If you two meet, the world might end. Also, a few of my friends want analyses of themselves. You should recognize them as pro heroes present: Mike, Hawks, Mirako, Ms. Joke, Ingenium, the Eraserhead, and Sir Nightai. Please respond as soon as possible. They are very excited to work with you after seeing the analysis you sent me. Don't worry about encrypting them, the PO boxes are secure enough that no one will be able to break into them. As for those theories and questions, you sent me a lot of things that didn't even occur to me. I'll be testing those today. I'll send you a letter with the answers. Thank you for your talents. The R-rated hero, Midnight. Izuku flopped face first onto his bed, pressing a pillow into his face, and screeched. Midnight responded, and liked it. She said that his analysis was better than most pros. Comparable to Nezu himself. And wanted him to do more. He pulled out his phone, calling his mom. As the phone rang, he bounced on the balls of his feet. Izuku, honey. What's going on? His mom asked, worry barely concealed in her voice. Instead, he covered his mouth to contain an excited squeal, before the floodgates burst open and he started to ramble. Nothing's wrong really, everything is fine, more than fine, it's amazing. I told you about that new dream of being an analyst, right? Well, last night I sent an analysis to Midnight, the Midnight, about her, and she responded this morning. And she liked it? She compared me to Nezu himself. The smartest being alive on the planet. And she said my skills were better than most pro analysts. And here's the thing, right, she wants me to do more. Pro heroes like Sir Nightai, and present Mike, and Hawks. Hawks. A chuckle from his mom snapped him out of his rambling. I'm so glad you're happy, sweetie. Well, you should respond to them, but you have to get your schoolwork done first. And eat breakfast. You ate breakfast, right? Izuku nodded, then remembered this was a phone conversation. Yeah, I did. I picked up a couple of muffins from the small cafe on the way to the post office. I'll work on school, I promise, Mom. Get well soon, okay? Of course, sweetheart. You have a good day. You too. Izuku ended the call, still grinning as he opened up the green folders and blank pages. His single-minded focus drove him into writing. It would be a few hours before he re-emerged, ready to face the world. Nemuri was really lucky that the notification for her PO box was in the middle of her lunch break. One of the students she was with, a few needed to borrow the art classroom for their projects, so she was fine sitting with them, looked up at the whip crack, the ringtone for her notifications. She casually opened her phone, then looked up at her students. "Can one of you be a dear and go get something for me?" she asked casually, trying not to vibrate with excitement. "I can." One of them stuck their hand in the air. A second year in support with a mutation quirk, Tomato, if she remembered correctly. She tossed her keys to the boy, who caught them clumsily. "Head to the post office a block over yonder," she gestured vaguely in the appropriate direction, "and collect something from my PO box. If you explain that I asked you to get something for me and show them my keys, I'm sure they'll show you where it is. Bring it back, and don't look at what's inside. Got it?" The kid nodded and skedaddled. Nemuri had to wonder about who exactly Deku was to be able to send back these replies so quickly. How much time did he have on his hands? Surely he at least had a part-time job, right? Or university. It took the kid only about 10 minutes to return with a green manila folder. Same color as last time. She grinned and dismissed the kid to go back to his work, opening up the folder. To Midnight-san. Thank you for the compliments. I'm honored to be compared to Nedzu himself. My current rate is 16,000 yen per analysis. You don't have to send me money for the freebie, it really was no trouble. I can't reveal my name, I'm afraid it will damage my credibility, the little I have. I wasn't taught to analyze, I've been doing so since I was a kid. You should have seen my first analyses, they were written in crayon and just amounted to so cool. I'd be honored to do those analyses. I want to be paid before I hand the analyses over, although I don't think you would rip me off, I don't want to take the chance, it has happened before. I'll take half up front, half after, or all up front, whichever is more convenient. As for the encryption, I am going to continue encrypting them. It's not that I don't trust you, I just want to be careful. Plus, encrypting them has become a habit at this point. Again, thank you for the response. The newest analyst, Deku. Nemuri took a picture of the letter, sending it to the group chat. UA. Teachers and Company, 12:21 p.m. Too much perfume, Midnight, Lie Detector, Tsukachi, and All Might Jr., Nightai, are online. Too much perfume, response.png. Lie Detector, isn't it the middle of class? Too much perfume, it's my lunch break. All Might Jr., that is low for the amount of work that Deku has been able to put out. Too much perfume, Midnight, Lie Detector, Tsukachi, take names Kick-Ass, Mirako, McChicken, Hawks, Newum, Ingenium, Put 'em Up, Present Mike, Eraserdad, Eraserhead, and All Might Jr., Nightai, are online. Take names Kick-Ass, all in favor of paying him 30 times that say I. Too much perfume, I. McChicken, I. All Might Jr., I. Newum, I. Put 'em Up, I. Eraserdad, get back to teaching class. Eraserdad, also I. Chapter 3, The Letter Brigade. Izuku woke up the next day with a crick in his neck from where he had been laying over his notebooks. His papers were all dry, thankfully, he's a drooler, and the coffee kettle he'd grabbed was empty. It was simply inconvenient to refill a mug over and over while he's in the zone. Going on his morning jog refreshed him just enough so he's coherent when he orders his breakfast and coffee. A skip in his step started to emerge as he jogged, he couldn't help getting excited. Midnight had an incredibly quick turnaround time, so hopefully the others did too. When he opened the P.O. box, the receptionist stared at him wide-eyed. He didn't pay her any mind until he opened the box, and 8 envelopes fell out, all from different but still super official agencies. Giddily, he grabbed them with the enthusiasm of a kid in a candy shop and bolted out the door, running back home like a fire was under his feet. It was all he could to keep himself from slamming the door and to actually sit down at the counter and read over the letters. His eyes were wide as he read them. To Deku-chan. You are absolutely being paid for your work. You don't have a choice. Take my money. I understand the need for secrecy in our line of work. It's amazing that you've been honing this skill for a long time. I'd totally like to see that first analysis, by the way. It's probably adorable. I also understand the need for caution. I'm sure you'll see that my friends are all respectable heroes, but I understand that not all heroes are. I wish you luck in your career, and I look forward to working more with you in the future. Thank you for the hard work. The R-rated hero, Midnight. To Deku. Hey little listener. I'm assuming that you're younger than I am, because Midnight said that you were trying to break onto the scene. For just getting into the industry, your analyses are amazing. They rival Nezu himself. Don't tell him I said that. I already sent the payment for an analysis on myself. You did an excellent job with Midnight. I'm excited to see how I can play around with my quirk. Put your hands up. The voice hero, present mic. To Deku. I've been personally trained by the HPSC, so I don't get impressed easily, but your analyses are seriously impressive. Who are you working with? Who taught you how to analyze? I'm curious to see what you come up with for me. I've already sent you the money. Good luck. The wing hero, Hawks. To Deku. You've caught the attention of multiple pro heroes. Your analyses are impressive for being a newbie. It's honestly a little suspicious, but I'm sure the others will be grilling you in their letters. I'll get straight to business. I've sent the money for an analysis on myself already. Don't disappoint me. The rabbit hero, Mirako. To Deku. What school did you go to? Personally, I hope this amazing mind was at Kitsubutsu, although I'm kind of jealous that I didn't see you if you did. I'm getting off topic. I sent you the money for an analysis of me. Based on the work you did for Midnight, 16,000 yen per is pretty low. You're selling yourself short. Have a laugh today. The smile hero, Ms. Joke. To Deku. It's an honor to be able to commission you for an analysis. Your analyses are very impressive, and for such a low rate. I understand you're a new face in the industry, but you are selling yourself short. I've paid in advance, like you requested in your letter to Midnight. Please take your time and don't feel like you have to rush. I look forward to what you send me. The Turbo Hero, Ingenium. Deku. Who are you, and who taught you to analyze like this? In the wrong hands, this could kill people. At least you've got the sense to encrypt all of these analyses. I've sent you the money for an analysis. Eraserhead. To Deku. Who are you? For being a new analyst, the analysis on Midnight is very impressive. You have a talent desperately needed in this industry. I've sent the money for an analysis on myself. I look forward to working with you in the future. Sir Nightai. P.S. I have an appreciation for jokes. Every letter had a check folded with it, and Izuku's eyes bulged at the amount of money. Each check was 500,000 yen, adding up to 4 million yen. All in one day. His brain was going to explode. He was calling his mom in an instant. What's up, Izuku? His mom asked, noticeably calmer than last call. Mom, do you remember me telling you about that analysis I sent Midnight? Yes, I do. Well, I just got 8 letters from different pro heroes, all with checks of 500,000 yen. I just got 4 million yen, Mom. Am I dreaming? This is dash. That is amazing, Izuku. 4 million yen. You've always been brilliant. I'm glad the heroes are recognizing it too. Izuku flushed, his hand instinctively covering his face as it got more and more red. Even at 14, he still can't take a compliment. 4,000,000 yen, he repeated, as if it was a dream. With this kind of money I could quit my job at the cat cafe. I could sit there as a patron instead of as a barista. You can sign up for that programming class you've been eyeing. His mom said. Don't sputter like that, I know you've been eyeing them. What dash? Oh. Izuku, honey, I have to go do some tests, but you can tell me all about it when you visit tomorrow, okay? Of course, Mom, I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. His mom hung up, and Izuku beamed. He went over to his analyses on the 7 pro heroes, which were almost done, they just needed to be polished up. He cracked his knuckles and got to work. Rent and quirkist medical bills weren't going to pay themselves after all. Nemuri drummed her fingers on the table, eagerly awaiting Shouta's return. They sent Shouta to the post office to pick up their mail. It wasn't often that you got 8 pro heroes, a sidekick, and the principal of UA into the same room, but this was an exceptional situation. Kigo and Rumi were talking among each other, both of them eating out of the same fried chicken container. Seriously, that amount of fried food cannot be good for them. Hisashi was amiably joking with Emi, and Tensei, and Mirai, and Jozo were discussing the new analyst. Nezu was on his phone, probably going through the security cameras to try and figure out who the new analyst is. It was then that Shouta returned, opening the door with 7 green folders in his hands. Everyone jumped up in excitement, and he passed them out. Nemuri was slightly disappointed that she didn't get a response, but she busied herself by looking over Emi's shoulder instead. And at the non-encrypted letters everyone got. To present Mike-san. You're right about me being younger, I'm currently going through the first year of online university. Thank you for the compliments. It's an honor to be compared to Nezu. One of the suggestions that you should focus on first, and the one I'm most excited about, is the control of your pitch. Can your pitch become loud enough to only affect those with mutant-type quirks that enhance their hearing? Can you lower your pitch to match certain frequencies? Putting my hands up. The newest analyst, Deku. To Hawks-san. I don't work with anyone except myself and my cat, her name is Sushi. I'm self-taught, I've been doing this since I was 3. I'm flattered that you're impressed. Honestly, it's still baffling to me that people like my work. Also, if you need any help with the HPSC, send me a letter. I'll do it pro bono. I'm always willing to take down corrupt organizations, or corrupt branches of organizations, you get the point. Thank you. The newest analyst, Deku. To Mirako-san. I get it, between the paper trail only and the resistance to give out my actual name, that I come across as being suspicious. I promise that I'm dedicated to your safety, it's why all these analyses are encrypted. I appreciate the reprieve from being grilled. I hope I don't disappoint. The newest analyst, Deku. To Ms. Joke-san. It's a small online school no one's ever heard of. I wish I could have gotten into Katsubutsu, but alas, I could only dream. The rate is mostly due to the fact that I'm a new analyst, and also because it only takes me a few hours to put these together because of my prior knowledge. I'm working off of the 4,000 yen per hour number, but because I don't actually know how long it'll take to put an analysis together, 16,000 yen is the best average. I did have a laugh. The newest analyst, Deku. To Ingenium-san. It's an honor to be commissioned. Thank you for the compliments, I'm hoping these will cement me a foothold in the analyst world. Any opportunity one can find is one I'll take. These analyses didn't take much time at all. To be honest, as soon as Midnight-san said that you were all interested in getting one, I started putting them together right away. It only took a couple hours to polish yours and put it together. I hope you enjoy the work. The newest analyst, Deku. To Sir Nitai-san. I can't reveal my name, but I appreciate the compliments. Honestly, I didn't even know until recently that my lifelong hobby was actually a career path I could take. Here's the analysis, as well as something a little extra, for you and all the heroes who worked hard. I look forward to working with you more in the future as well. Deku. P.S. French fries weren't made in France. They were fried in Greece. Eraserhead-san. I cannot reveal my name, but I can say that I'm self-taught, through many years of practice. You really don't want to see my first notebook, it was written in crayon. I'm well aware of the dangers of this information. That's why all of the analyses are encrypted, only in paper, and delivered by hand to your PO boxes. Don't worry about an encryption key, I burned it a long time ago. It's an honor to be doing an analysis for you. You've always been a huge inspiration for me, as a hero who avoids the vultures and as a hero who essentially fights quirkless most of the time. Which is why, from the bottom of my heart, please change your goggles. It's physically killing me that you're using slits instead of some sort of one-way mirror. That's how something gets past the goggles and into your eyes. Deku. Oh, you have a fan, Shouta, Nemuri teased. They must be really dedicated if they know him, Tensei said, already skimming through the pages. Mine is extraordinarily detailed. There were nods across the board. Then Kigo spoke up. You know, I always wondered about those, he said, gesturing towards the goggles around Shouta's neck. Before that conversation could continue any further, Emi gasped. Mirai, what is that? Mirai pulled a picture out of his envelope. It was a picture of a fluffy calico, sprawled out in the sunlight. Most notable was the heart over one eye. When he showed it, Everyone started cooing over the cat. Even Shoto was smiling. That must be the present Deku mentioned, Jozo said. Also their jokes are good. We've gotta send him something back. Emmy shouted. Maybe a picture of Shoto with all the cats sleeping on him. Absolutely not, Shoto glared at the pro hero. How about I write the response for all of us? Nezu asked, something gleaming in his eyes that looked a lot like mischief. Suddenly Nemuri shivered, for reasons definitely not related to the imminent end of the world. Chapter 4, The Reign of Terror begins. To Deku. Am I a dog? A mouse? A bear? Most importantly, I'm Nezu, the principal of UA. I'm very interested in you, Deku. I haven't been able to figure out your identity yet, and I'm very curious. It's the first interesting game I've had in a while. You have certainly caught my attention. At some point we should meet up for a game of chess. Only once you're ready, of course. I have a suggestion for you. You are very dedicated to security, which is commendable, but there are cases that can be time sensitive and need an answer quicker than an envelope in a PO box. What you should get is a Hero Network account, in order to access information and send analyses easier. Every pro hero has one, and it's all safely encrypted, so it's safe to send analyses over. Please let me know your HN number once you have one. I'm very excited to continue this game. Mr. Principal, Nezu. P.S. Everyone is excited to see Sushi. Hawks. P.P.S. You should be charging 16,000 yen per hour. Ms. Joke. P.P.P.S. Your puns are quality. Sir Nightai. Izuku's jaw dropped as he sat at the cat cafe. He had taken a morning shift at the cat cafe, since one of the other part-timers was sick and couldn't come in. Since he didn't have time to open the letter before work, he elected to do so during his break. He could technically quit working at the cafe, but working there was nice. It had a nice atmosphere, and the customers who came were nice and rarely ever got on Izuku's nerves. Besides, the cats would miss him, and he couldn't do that to them. Still in shock, he tucked the letter back into the envelope and the envelope back into his bag. Getting up, he simply went back to work, pushing the letter to the back of his mind. The revelation could wait until he was off the clock. UA. Teachers and Company, 2:19 p.m. Deku, Izuku, added Deku to UA. Teachers and Company. Deku, Lie Detector, Tsukachi, Eraser Head, McChicken, Hawks, Neum, Ingenium, Too Much Perfume, Midnight, Take Names Kick-Ass, Mirako, Giggles and Shit, Ms. Joke, Nezu, Put M Up, Present Mike, and All Might JR, Sir Nightai, are online. Too Much Perfume, Deku-chan. Eraser Dad, not that I'm not glad to see you, but how the fuck did you get in here? Deku, smiley face, McChicken, that's terrifying, thank you. Deku, anyways there isn't enough PQ media reps to satisfy me. Deku changed Lie Detector's name to Pink Panther. Deku changed McChicken's name to Falcon. Falcon, but I'm a hawk? Deku changed Neum's name to Silver the Hedgehog. Deku changed Too Much Perfume's name to Anya Amesova. Anya Amesova, I don't know what it's a ref to, but I love the name. Deku changed Take Names Kick-Ass's name to Jack Bugs Bunny. Deku changed Giggles and Shit's name to Captain Jack Sparrow. Deku changed Put M Up's name to Fussro Dot. Deku changed All Might JR's name to Doctor Strange. Fussro Dot, I don't get most of these references. Deku, don't worry, I'll educate you, smiley face, Eraser Dad, why is my name left alone? Deku, it's already perfect. Anya Amesova, speaking of which. Anya Amesova changed Deku's name to Deku-chan. Deku-chan, I am OKW this. Falcon, it was inevitable. Deku-chan, oh I'm so tempted. Silver the Hedgehog, to do what? Eraser Dad, problem child. Deku-chan, I'ma do it. Silver the Hedgehog, do what? Deku-chan changed Nezu's name to God. Eraser Dad, oh no. God, it is a pleasure to meet you, Deku. Deku-chan, a pleasure to meet you too. I can't play chess in person, but I know a private server where we can play online. God, it would be my pleasure. Falcon, speaking of which. Falcon, I demand a pic of Sushi. Deku-chan, oh. Deku-chan, Majesty.png. Deku-chan, this is Susie and she's a brat but I love her. Anya Amesova, oh my god she's adorable. Anya Amesova, kiss her for me. Captain Jack Sparrow, she's a cutie. Fussrow. My heart. Fussrow. It's melding. Silver the Hedgehog, RT. Falcon, RT. Jack Bugs Bunny, RT. Doctor Strange, speaking of which, now that you're here, Deku. Doctor Strange, there's a case I need you to go over. Deku-chan, of course. Send me the deets and I'll take a look. Deku-chan, OMG my PMS are exploding. Fussrow. I may have shared your HN number when you joined the chat. Deku-chan, you know what I don't mind. Deku-chan, but I do need to go do my job LMAO. Chapter 5, Falling Apart. From that day, Deku's popularity exploded. Not among the public, analysts don't get that sort of popularity in the public eye. No, among the hero network, Deku was gaining traction. He got asked to do analyses on everyone from the wild pussycats to All Might himself. For villains, security, missions, police cases, and everything in between. He was making so much money, he didn't even have to go to work, he still did, cause it was nice and he liked the owner. He had finished the first year of the online college courses he was taking, he skipped from middle school to college, because he wanted to go to a physical high school, and was taking a metaphorical gap year for his new analyst job, as well as launching himself into programming and hacking classes. And all the bills were easily paid. It was 10 months before the UA entrance exams when it all fell apart. On the way to the hospital, Izuku pulled out his phone, weaving around people expertly even with a duffel bag over his shoulder. Trigger case, do not change names, 3:07 p.m. Detective Tsukachi at Deku, have you gotten the info yet? Deku, I have, I'm still looking it over. Detective Tsukachi, I think we need to meet in person. Detective Tsukachi, I've only given you a little bit of information, but there's stuff that's dangerous to be sent online, even over HN. Deku, I know a place, it's private and the part-timer that closes the cafe won't mind if we use the cafe as a meeting place after hours. Detective Tsukachi, where's the cafe? Deku, it's Muse Muffins on corner and 3rd St. Deku, meet at 9. Detective Tsukachi, right. Detective Tsukachi at everyone please meet for a meeting tonight at Muse Muffins at 9 p.m. Satisfied, Izuku pocketed his phone. With a bounce in his step, he continued onward, his feet carrying him through muscle memory. Humming a little tune that he learned from his mother, he went up to the front desk with a smile and a good mood. They had moved his mom to another room, so he had to ask where it was. He didn't want to just ask his mom, it was supposed to be a surprise visit. Hi, I'm here to see Midori Yainko, he chirped, bouncing on his feet. Oh, you must be Izuku, the quirkless. The secretary asked. He flinched at the reminder, but nodded, keeping the smile and good mood. He's heard enough of her remarks to be able to tune her out by now. She was pronounced dead a couple days ago, the secretary said blandly. The word dead slammed him in the face like a hammer. I'm sorry, what? He asked, jaw dropped. She's dead, kid, now scram. The secretary looked back to her computer. Why did no one tell me? He could feel tears running down his face, and he knew that he was attracting stares, but he didn't really care. She glared at him, full of disgust. Get out, or I'll call security, brat. Suddenly everything was too much. The blinding white walls, the beeping of machines, the smell of antibiotics. His breathing was short and quick, and it felt like a vice was wrapped around his heart. Someone shouted something, and in his panic he bolted. He didn't register anything other than running far away, until his lungs burned and his legs ached. He dropped his bag under the overpass, just standing there and breathing. He hiccuped, trying to get as much air in his lungs as possible. It still felt as if he was being strangled, as if at any moment the vice around his heart would clench and he would die. Pronounced dead. Those words rolled over and over in Izuku's mind. It was fuzzy, all he could process was the fact that his mom was dead. She's gone. He had nothing left fighting for. You'll make an excellent skin suit, kid. Suddenly he was engulfed. Thankfully he had enough time to close his eyes and mouth, but then he was covered in slime. He scrabbled desperately at the slime, trying to dig his way out as his lungs started to burn, and he could feel himself slipping. Then he was being slapped awake. He blearily opened his eyes, before everything came crashing back to him. Izuku sat up suddenly, which turned out to be a mistake when his forehead collided with another forehead. A rather large, familiar forehead. All Might's forehead. He was 14 now, and knew the harsh realities of life, but seeing All Might in the flesh made him feel like he was 4. Grief had hit his walls with a sledgehammer, and let the child in him out. The child that had been beaten down all his life, but still dared to hold on to hope. "Thank you so much, All Might." He scrambled to stand up, taking a few bows. His bag was plopped back onto his shoulder, and he almost blue-screened at the fact that his childhood idol had put his bag on his shoulder. "It's no problem, kid." All Might laughed heartily, the sludge villain in a soda bottle shoved into one of the pockets of his cargo shorts. He picked up his groceries again, and Izuku gave into his impulses and dared to hope. "Wait, All Might," he shouted, running up to the man who was leaving. "Just one question. I've got to go." All Might boomed, getting prepared to leave. He had a stupid idea. A really stupid idea. But he didn't really care. Hope had stoked the ashes he thought were extinguished long ago, and he really didn't care if he lived or not, so he did it. "Kid, you've got to let go." All Might shouted. It only registered to Izuku that he was now up in the air, clinging to All Might's leg. "If I let go now, I'll die," Izuku shouted back. They landed on a rooftop, and he stumbled a little, the weight of the duffel bag heavy on his as he looked over the city, All Might behind him. It suddenly occurred to Izuku how incredibly stupid that was, yet adrenaline still coursed through his veins. He didn't know whether it was the fact that his mother was dead or almost dying to the sludge villain that left him without fucks to give, but it was incredibly freeing. He turned around at the sound of steam and saw, a skeletal man? He resembled All Might, but he was so much smaller. "Small Might? All Might? Is that you?" He sighed wearily, the kind of sigh that you make after staying up 3 nights in a row working, not that Izuku would know from personal experience, definitely not. "Yes, it is me. But Izuku just gestured at Small Might. "Unless your quirk is a transformation type quirk and not an emitter type quirk like everyone assumed." Before he began to start mumbling, Small Might raised a hand. "No, I'll explain what actually happened." He raised his shirt, exposing a nasty-looking injury. "I got this from a villain fight 5 years ago dash." "Toxic chainsaw?" Izuku asked. "You really know your stuff, huh kid?" Small Might chuckled, then shook his head. "No, this was from a fight that was never broadcasted. This injury limits the amount of time that I can spend in my hero form. Most of the time, I look like this." He dropped his shirt back down, then looked up at Izuku, who was effectively blue-screening. "I need you to keep this a secret. It's very dangerous if this gets out." "Of course." He bowed. "It will come with me to the grave." "Anyways," Small Might said, standing up with his groceries. "You have a question for me?" Izuku sucked a deep breath in. Can a quirkless person become a hero? It was as if the entire world stopped. The only thing he could hear was the wind rushing past them. The air hung heavy, waiting for the pro-hero's answer. "I'm sorry kid, but no. It's simply too dangerous. Some villains can't be beat without a quirk. If you want to be a hero, try becoming a police officer or a doctor." Small Might turned away, as if he didn't just shatter Izuku's dream. "They should let you out once you explain what happened." Then he just left. It was a delusion. A dream he clung to out of grief, one that he thought he'd come to terms with. But it didn't hurt any less. Sure, he had a new job, helping the heroes, but it felt empty. Anyone could do what he did, it was just a dumb creepy hobby. Maybe he just needed to accept what he already knew. He really was a useless Deku. He had no one. Take a swan dive off the roof and hope for a quirk in your next life. A hollow cavern filled his chest, making him numb. He dropped his duffel bag on the ground, filled with a work uniform and green folders filled with notes that meant nothing. He took a few steps, closed his eyes, and let himself fall. Chapter 6, Being Caught. Kigo flew around lazily, gnawing on chicken drumsticks as he scanned the rooftops. He normally wasn't in Musutafu, but the commission had sent him to look into a couple of things for them. And as their little lapdog, he complied. They wanted to know what would spurn All Might to become a teacher at UA and who Deku was, the mystery analyst. Kigo had his suspicions, of course, about Deku. He had no clue about All Might. The man didn't even have a teaching license. From what he could infer, Deku was around the same age as him, if younger than him. He had a part-time job that he mostly relied on to pay the bills. He had a cat that he sent pictures of. Her name was Susie and she was adorable. He was a massive nerd, especially of pre-Quirk era media. And he was smart as hell. Hawks liked the guy, but the commission wanted him under their control. Anyways, he wasn't lazily flying over Musudafu for a break, although these chicken drumsticks were delicious. No, he was trailing All Might. He just landed on a rooftop with a kid clinging to his leg, and just deflated. There was steam, and then he was smaller. Skeleton Might? Small Might? Whatever, the commission would want to know about this anyway. He shook a couple of feathers out, moving them down to the rooftop. He missed the explanation that Small Might gave the kid, but did catch the kid's question. Can a quirkless person be a hero? Oh, that was a loaded question. He crossed his fingers, hoping that Small Might wasn't going to say what he thought he was going to say. I'm sorry kid, but no. God damn it, Small Might. He tuned out a little to what the old-timer had to say. He just left the kid there. After a villain attack that Kigo had previously trailed him from. He's not that good of a hero anyways, just showing up, dealing with the problem, and leaving. At least Kigo knows to stay behind and make sure the civilians are alright and get them medical attention before continuing on patrol. He moved his hand up to his earpiece, about to get in contact with his handler, when the kid dropped his bag. And started to walk. Kigo moved before he could think, adjusting his bucket of chicken drumsticks to tuck it under one arm and diving. His blood had run cold, and the only thing he could think was please don't be too late. The kid had stepped off. He willed himself to go faster. 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 He grabbed the kid under his armpits with his free arm, spreading his wings out and jetting them up. The kid had only fallen a few meters at most, but that was too many meters for his liking. He pulled the kid close to him, maneuvering carefully back onto the rooftop, away from the edge. The kid's eyes were wide open in shock, so Kigo took the time to really look at him. He was short, probably around 11 or 12, and yet the bags under his eyes were the biggest he's ever seen. His eyes were a brilliant green, but they were dull, lacking the spark of life. His curly green hair was a mess, like he had dragged his head through mud. He wore a t-shirt that just said shirt and gray cargo pants, with red high tops that looked scuffed in the sense that he'd had them for a long time, but clearly cared for them. Kid, Kigo said gently, trying to project calm and not the absolute panic he really felt. He was briefed on a lot of things in the commission, but someone about to jump was not one of those things. He was on his own. You're Hawks. The kid's eyes were wide. Oh my god, you're usually not in Musudafu, so I took you away from something important, I'm so sorry dash. Hey kid, calm down, he said, his hand still gently holding the kid's wrist, loose enough to be reassuring but there in case he tried to jump again. It's fine, I really wasn't doing anything important. Besides, you're important. The kid shook his head. I'm not. I'm sure that's not true. He gently tugged on the kid, and just flopped onto the ground. See Mir. Let's just talk. The kid was nervous, but sat down. He stretched a wing out, using the bright red appendage to bring the kid closer in a pseudo-hug, wrapping around him like a blanket. The kid leaned into the touch, melting against the hero's side. After a few tense moments, Kigo decided to grab another chicken drumstick. You want some, kid? He asked, starting to gesture with the drumstick. I got these from this really nice place downtown. The drumstick flew from his hands, bouncing across the concrete and eventually skidding over the edge. He pouted. Aw. My chicken. The kid burst into giggles. Kigo was grinning despite the sacrifice of his drumstick for the kid's amusement. It was relieving to see that he could still laugh despite being about to jump. He just met the kid and he was getting attached. Kigo is fucked. What's your name? He asked. I can't just keep calling you kid. The kid sobered up, curling up further like he was protecting himself. Midoriya. Midoriya Izuku. Alright Midoriya. What's wrong? He was hesitating, holding back tears and practically biting his bottom lip hard enough to bleed. Talk to me, please. I can't help you if I don't know. Kigo, number 12 pro hero, was not above begging. If you knew, you'd leave, like everyone else, Midoriya muttered, shaking his head. Kid, Midoriya, I promise that nothing you said could be so bad that I'd leave, Kigo said, trying to reassure the kid. The words processed in Midoriya's head, and he seemed to be psyching himself up for something. After a few moments, he blurted out, I'm quirkless. All the pieces fit together. He knew the statistics. He knew the bullying and suicide rates were absurdly high. But Kigo didn't really want to call attention to that, especially since the sentence right before that was you'd leave like everyone else, so he did the next best thing. So. He shrugged, pulling the kid closer. I'm not going to leave you just because you don't have a quirk. Midoriya stared at him wide-eyed, tears watering already. He flung himself at the hero, clinging to his jacket as he sobbed. Kigo simply let it happen, eventually just patting the kid's shoulder awkwardly. It seemed that what Kigo said was what opened the floodgates, because the kid started talking. He waited patiently as the kid babbled. About the bullying, how it started from teasing and words up to quirk usage and suicide baiting, the spider lilies on his desks, and how his teachers would ignore or even encourage it. About how his father left him after his diagnosis, how his mother worked super hard, how she got cancer when he was 13, how she died today. About how he's living alone in his childhood home and struggling to survive off of a part-time job until he finally found a second job that paid well. About how he'd always dreamed of being a hero before his mom fell ill. About his encounter with All Might and the villain attack, how he was almost drowned in sludge, and how All Might brutally crushed the last remains of this kid's dream and left him on the roof, alone. Holy shit kid, Kigo said, and Midoriya snorted next to him. That's a lot. He slumped into Kigo, apparently over the embarrassment of crying onto the pro hero. I'm so tired, but lighter? Who knew being out of fucks to give would feel so freeing? Kigo chuckled. You're lucky. He took a moment to collect his thoughts. He could tell that just talking about everything helped Midoriya a little bit, so now it was up to Kigo to not fuck this up. But you know what? I think your mom would be proud of you. You've made it this far off of just yourself? That takes a fighting spirit. The kid's eyes were filling up with tears again, and opened his mouth to say something, when an explosion cut him off. They both turned towards the source, Hawks with a wince because of his advanced hearing. He could hear the signs of a battle. You should go. Midoriya exclaimed. We're talking about this afterwards, Kigo said quickly, spreading out his wings. You ready to fly? Midoriya only had time to squeak before he grabbed the kid once more, launching them up into the air. They soared through the air, and Midoriya's shriek of fright turned into delightful laughter. Kigo let himself smile, before focusing back on the situation. He dropped the kid off behind the police tape, flying up a little higher to assess the situation, only hearing the tail end of "That's the sludge villain" from the kid. Sure enough, a man made of sludge was inside the alleyway, with an explosive blonde kid trapped inside it. Backdraft and Kamui Woods were working to keep the crowd back, and Death Arms and MT Lady were just standing there. Kigo was detaching his feathers when he heard a war cry. Midoriya ducked under the police tape, leaving his bag behind and grabbing a rock off of the ground. He slung it at the sludge villain's eye, hitting it dead on. Sludge Man roared, and Kigo's feathers swooped down to tug the two boys away from the sludge, as Midoriya's desperate scrabbling was getting them nowhere. The kid was shouting something about the wind, so Kigo flew up, bringing his feathers back to him. He snapped his wings open, then flapped them, creating a gust of wind that blew the sludge apart. The crowd cheered as he landed, and the police were working on collecting the villain's eyes and body while the boys were herded to the paramedics. The vultures excuse him, the media were already on the scene and trying to interview him. He ignored them for now and just gave a few waves to the crowd, making his way over to the boys. He sent a couple of feathers to go and grab Midoriya's bag. It would do no good if he just left it. You're both good, one of the nurses said. Kigo walked over to hear the heroes praising the blonde for his powerful quirk and bravery. Look, you can't just run into situations like that, Kamui Woods said, turning to face Midoriya. Even with an analysis quirk, it's dangerous for Dash. What analysis quirk? The blonde turned to Midoriya. Deku's quirkless. All the other pros rounded onto Midoriya at that point. You're quirkless. That's even more reckless. MT Lady said. You should have stayed behind the police line, we had it handled. Right Hawks? Kigo raised an eyebrow, and was about to say something when Midoriya jumped up. Had it handled? He asked, a dangerous edge to his voice. Kigo could already see the vultures angling their cameras on him. Had it handled? If I had waited any longer before jumping in, Bakugo would be dead by now. The blonde violently flinched at the reminder, and watched Midoriya like he had grown a second head. I didn't even need a quirk to figure out that having a rock thrown in your eye would be painful. You are fully trained professionals, how were you not able to figure out something? We were waiting for someone with a better quirk. Death Arms was cut off by Midoriya continuing to rant. Someone with a better quirk? Is that your excuse? I'm sorry, last I checked you don't need a quirk to throw a rock at someone's eye. Seriously, a kid is dying and all you've got is our quirks don't work. As heroes you should be trained in the bare minimum amount of strategy to be able to work out how to save someone. It should be expected that not everyone's quirk would work all the time, and you should be trained to work around that. Because of that Bakugo almost fucking died. Midoriya threw his hands up into the air, dragging them down his face. The four pros turned to Kigo. He shrugged, knowing what he was about to say was going to set the media on fire. The kid's right. I may have used my wings to blow him away, pun intended, but his quick thinking bought me the time to pull them both to safety. Plus, him frantically shouting wind gave me a pretty good idea about how to beat that guy. Leaving the other heroes looking rightfully scolded, he turned to the kid. Man. We've still got to continue that conversation from earlier. Midoriya groaned, but picked up his duffel bag. Kigo let out one last wave for the crowd, before grabbing him and lifting off into the sky. Chapter 7, Muse Muffins. This the right place, kid? Kigo asked, landing them in front of a cat cafe. Muse Muffins, he noted, the cat cafe that he had to meet at? Midoriya nodded, opening the door. The cat cafe was surprisingly empty, except for the cats wandering around. It was a nice place, a mix of tables and beanbag chairs. The walls were painted a pleasant light pink, with other pastel colors mixed into the place. Kigo could smell pastries and coffee. A young lady was leaning on the counter, but she looked up from her phone when they both entered. Midoriya! She exclaimed. Ihara-san was getting worried when you were late. Hawks. While the young barista started fangirling over Kigo, something that will never not be funny, an older woman came out from the kitchen. Midoriya! She exclaimed, pulling the kid into a hug. Don't do that again. An old woman's heart can only handle so much. I'm okay, I promise, Ihara-san, Midoriya reassured her. I was caught up in watching a hero fight, that's all. I'll duck in the back, get changed, and start my shift. That's skipping a few steps there, kid. Kigo ruffled the kid's hair and listened to the kid squawk. I'd like a conversation with him before his shift. He should take a shower though, his hair is disgusting. Ihara nodded, turning to the young lady. Harano, you can go now that your shift's ended. I'll handle the counter while Midoriya changes and has his conversation. Harano nodded in response. Don't die, Midoriya, she called out, before grabbing a bag and walking out the front. Ihara lightly smacked Midoriya. Go get changed. I'm not getting any younger, and you still stink. With a yelp and a yes ma'am. Midoriya went into the back with his bag. Kigo stretched his wings, falling into a beanbag and sending a quick text back to the agency. A cat walked up to him, her name tag calling her Pox. The pro hero looked up at the older lady with an eyebrow raised. Ihara chuckled as she wiped the counter. I see you've seen the names, she said. Young Midoriya has been coming here for a long time. He named all of the cats. Kigo shook his head. Should have known that the kid's sense of humor is just as bad as his fashion sense. Would you like anything, dearie? No, I have my fuck. Kigo pouted dramatically. I left my fried chicken on that rooftop. Ihara laughed at the hero's dramatics. Would you like a pastry? You know what, I would. How much for that cat one? Kigo ended up overpaying her for the pastry, he had the money to burn, and picked a table by the window, where they could have some relative privacy. It wasn't really rush hour, thankfully, so there weren't many passers-by gawking at him. He turned the chair around, letting his wings spread out as he ate his pastry. It was a pretty good one. Soon enough, Midoriya came back out. He wore a simple white collared shirt, with some black slacks and those red sneakers. Over it was a light pink apron, with Mew muffins embroidered on the front, and paw prints over the pocket. His hair was much fluffier now that it was clean, sticking out all over the place, and it read as more vibrantly green than before. "Take a seat, kid," Kigo said. The kid did so nervously, his fingers drumming on the table. "What you said back there, in the alleyway," Midoriya paused, nervously working his bottom lip. "Did you mean it?" Kigo smiled, hopefully reassuringly. "I did. Your quick thinking and action was what saved that kid. Now, it was reckless, I'm not going to lie. But you saved him." Midoriya slumped over, wiping off tears. "Besides," Kigo added, "everything you said was right too. There were 4 pros, they should have figured something out long before we got there. For professionality's sake, I have to tell you that I disapprove of the language, but you were right." Midoriya nodded, going over and hugging the bird-themed hero. Kigo pat the kid on the back. "Now then, we're going to have to talk about before that. I know you've got work, but after that, do you have anywhere to go?" "I should be good on bills," Midoriya said. "Kid, you should not be living alone," Kigo said. "Friends?" "Nope." "Other related family?" "Nope." "You sure Ihara-san wouldn't take you in? She seems like a nice lady. I don't want to burden her." Kigo sighed, patting the kid's back. He was attached. "All right. All right, we'll talk about it more after your shift. Now, the important question, do you still feel like you want to jump?" Midoriya hesitated, before he spoke up quietly. "I still do, I think I have for a while, but it's quieter, easier to ignore. I won't do it again, if that's what you're asking." Kigo nodded, standing up and stretching. "Alrighty then. You get to work, and I'm gonna go see if I can reclaim my spot." "Don't you have to go back to patrol?" Midoriya asked, but he also stood up. "Nah, my shift was over a while ago," Kigo lied. "Besides, I've got a meeting to attend that actually happens to be here tonight, so I might as well stick around." Midoriya went back behind the counter, speaking a little to Ihara, while Kigo made his way back over to the beanbag he was in earlier. To his annoyance, Pox was now sitting right in the middle where Kigo's butt is supposed to be. "All right, get out, you little rascal," Kigo muttered, picking the cat up and flopping down. He sighed in content, then huffed as the cat jumped onto his stomach. He relaxed, letting one hand pet Pox while the other one pulled out his phone. UA. Teachers and Company, 5:19 p.m. Falcon, Hawks, Anya Amesova, Midnight, Jack Bugs Bunny, Mirako, and Captain Jack Sparrow, Ms. Joke, are all online. Falcon, I think I'm adopting a child. Anya Amesova, eyes. Jack Bugs Bunny, spill the fucking tea. Falcon, fletchling.png. Falcon, look at him. Anya Amesova, oh my god. Jack Bugs Bunny, he looks like a piece of broccoli. Captain Jack Sparrow, isn't that the kid who sassy Death Arms, MT Lady, Backdraft and Kamui Woods? Falcon, yes. Jack Bugs Bunny, keep Broccoli-chan. Captain Jack Sparrow, how did you meet him? Falcon, talked him down from a roof. Falcon, he says he's okay but I'm keeping an eye on him. That's how he spent the next few hours, sitting in the same beanbag with a cat on his chest while Midoriya worked. There were customers who would trickle in occasionally who wanted a selfie with Kigo, but he made it very clear that he was not moving. To Kigo's amusement and the kid's embarrassment, there were even a few people who wanted a selfie with Midoriya. First to come in of the hero meeting were Aizawa, Yamada and Kayama. All being from UA, it made sense that they would come in at the same time. Hello little listener. Yamada exclaimed, already cooing over Midoriya. Midoriya gasped. Present Mike, Midnight, and Eraserhead. Everyone looked at him. You recognize me? Aizawa asked, one eyebrow raised. The kid started to ramble, but Kigo chose to ignore it as Pox started kneading biscuits in his chest. He opened one eye when Kayama dropped down next to him. Broccoli-chan is certainly cuter in person, she said, wiggling her eyebrows. Hawks just rolled his eyes and smacked the hero. Next trickled in the detective and Itza, who were talking amiably about something or other as they entered the cafe. Midoriya nerded out about the pro hero, and about Ms. Joke when she arrived, how someone as bubbly as her is an underground hero is a miracle. He also fanboyed over Sasaki, Moishi, and Iwata when they all arrived at the same 10 minutes before 9. While that was going on, Tsukachi went around and pulled some tables around so that there was a place for a proper meeting. Takamai. Kigo groaned as Tsukachi spoke up. "You're going to have to actually sit at the table." "I can't move," he responded. "It's illegal. I'm the chosen one." Yamada snorted, then moved over to pick up Pox, who let out an offended meow. "You're now free," he exclaimed, his husband using erasure to cancel his quirk before he wrecked the cafe. "Cat a Peter?" Moishi asked, looking at the tag of the cat that had settled onto his lap. Everyone at the meeting had a cat. "Mine is Pox," Kigo said, as the stubborn brat had decided to perch on his shoulder now that he wasn't lying in the beanbag. "All right, the puns are all well and good," Tsukachi said, petting the cat on his lap. "But there's a matter of security. There's a teenager here, and this is confidential information." Everyone looked up at Midoriya, who was currently closing up the cafe. "Besides, Deku is late," Sasaki grumbled. Midoriya closed the curtains and flipped over the sign on the door, turning back to the table with a smile. "It's funny how the cats gravitated to the heroes they're named after," he said, looking over the gathering of heroes with none of the nerves of the past few hours. Hawks went to Hawks, Munite went to Midnight, Present Mew went to Present Mike, Eraserpaw went to Eraserhead, Ms. Per went to Ms. Joke, Pagenium went to Ingenium, Detective Meow Masa went to Detective Tsukachi, Bubble Cat went to Bubble Girl, Catapeter went to Centipeter, Sir Catai went to Sir Nightai, and Midoriya paused to pick up a cat who had wandered over to him. Nekuru went to Deku. Chapter 8, The Meeting. The silence was so thick, you could hear a pin drop. Shouter raised an eyebrow, silently assessing the kid. He was covered in scars, running up and down his arms. He had bags under his eyes, and his emerald eyes, which had previously been full of brightness and innocence, were now hard with the look of someone who had seen too much. Shouta didn't know what happened to give a kid the skills to lie so convincingly. He didn't really want to know. "You're Deku?" Tensei asked. "But, you're so young." Everyone looked at Naomasa. He just sighed. "He's telling the truth. He's so cute." Nemuri burst out, cooing over the kid. "He is a little broccoli-chan." The kid flushed as the other ladies and Hisashi started cooing over him, shooting a dirty look at Kigo. Kigo shrugged, raising his hands up defensively. "I sent them a picture of you, kid." Mirai sighed. "Are we sure he should be on the case if he's so young? He's still a civilian." He was trying to be scolding, but the cat perched on his shoulder blunted the effect. "As long as I stay behind the screen and off the field, I'm still safe," Deku said, going behind the counter for something. "Besides, I know enough about the case that you can't really take me off without having me sign a shit ton of NDAs." He took a seat at the table, having pulled out a few different green manila folders, a notebook, and a laptop. "I'm ready when you guys are," he said, nodding to the detective. The detective sighed, probably already having a headache incoming from the can of worms that the problem child just opened up. "All right. There's been new information that's been brought to the table regarding the trigger case, but first I'd like to hear Deku's analysis with the information we've been able to provide him." The greenette nodded, pulling out the first folder and opening it up. "We've currently identified 3 dealers of this new version of trigger," he said. "Midoriya, Inakata Shihei, and Iwakari Neazane." The folder opened, and Shouta saw the face of Midoriya. Midoriya, 27 years old, quirk, trick or treat. He can summon small pumpkins, which explode on command. He's dealt other drugs before, but this is the first time he's picked up an illegal drug to sell. He has connections to the Demon Riders, presumably where he's been getting his drugs from before he started dealing trigger. He relies on his quirk too much, so either dodging the pumpkins or turning off his quirk is sufficient enough to bring him in. I recommend Eraserhead and a pro hero for backup. Eraserhead should be able to take him on his own, but with Mida having trigger on his person, it's best not to take the chance. Deku opened the next folder. Inakata Shihei, 37 years old, quirk, bait. He has an influential voice that specifically makes his taunts more effective. He was a former member of the Abigawa Tenshukai before they were disbanded, and his previous jobs were assassinations, not drug dealings. His fighting style heavily relies on his kanobo, though he does have knives on him. As long as you can ignore his taunts, he essentially fights quirkless. I'd recommend Ingenium and Rock Lock, as a combination of speed and immobilization should be able to take him down quickly. Finally, he opened the last folder. Iwakiri Neazane, 21 years old, quirk, impulse. She can create brief electromagnetic pulses from the spikes on her forehead. She's had a history of graffiti and assault charges, and she comes from a poor family, which is possibly why she turned to trigger dealing. She's an inexperienced fighter, so as long as any equipment brought to fight her aren't shorted by the EMPs. I'd recommend Midnight and another hero as backup. Midnight should be able to knock her out on her own, but like with Mida, she has trigger on her. We should be careful. Deku closed the 3 folders, sliding them forwards to the middle of the table. There's more details inside those folders, they're all encrypted. Based on the info, we're looking for a large Yakuza group behind the trigger dealings. One large enough to offer enough money to tempt the poor, notable enough to catch the attention of other former Yakuza members, and with enough influence to reach into the underground pharmaceutical business. I have a short list of 50 Yakuza groups here. He opened his notebook to the page he was talking about, but without information. That's where I'm at. They all looked at each other, and Naomasa pulled out the 2 pages with the Yakuza lists. Mirai cleared his throat, speaking up. We've got video footage of a 4th dealer, he said, opening his laptop. We're hoping you could possibly identify him and the person he was meeting with. I'll take a look, Deku said, opening a blank page to his notebook. He nodded to Mirai, who played the video, and then started muttering faster than anyone could make out. Everyone looked at each other, just kind of watching as Deku started to write while he muttered, completely focused on the footage. Shouta watched as Deku opened a new tab, searching for light blue and purple crystals. He then wrote down Tanzanite, flipped to the police database, and started searching for quirks that produced Tanzanite. Hojo you, he said, turning the laptop to the other pro heroes. Quirk, crystallize. He can summon Tanzanite crystals all over his body, although they're worthless on the general market. He had a previous affiliation with the Keshorobo, a quirk crystal trafficking group. It could be that the Yakuza group saw that he was dropped by the Keshorobo and saw an opportunity to get another dealer. What about the other person? Shouta asked, one eyebrow raised. The conclusion the kid reached in only a few minutes was impressive. He could see Naomasa taking notes. Deku turned the laptop back to him. This was the more difficult part, as the person was completely in the shadows. They could only see a small silhouette that the camera could pick out. He didn't seem daunted though, instead porting the footage into some sort of video editing software. He cranked up the contrast, and the silhouette of the figure could be more fully defined. Mimic, quirk, mimicry, Deku muttered, continuing to write. The general manager of the Shihasaikai. Are you sure? Mirai asked, looking back over the footage. I'm sure, Deku said, pulling back his list of Yakuza organizations from the detective. With a pen he managed to pull out, he circled the entry that said Shihasaikai. The Plague Doctor mask is a dead giveaway, along with the short stature. So we're taking on one of the older and also more influential Yakuza groups. Nemuri asked. Sounds like a party. What's your breakdown on them, Deku? Moashi asked, his mandibles clicking slightly as he spoke. Deku clicked his pen as he looked over the information he had, Nekoru on his shoulder and nibbling on his green curls. I can send you a more in-depth breakdown tomorrow, but I can give you guys my initial thoughts now. When Shouten nodded at him, he continued to speak. Hojo's crystals can grow nearly instantaneously, and they're fairly durable, but they aren't unbreakable. You'd want the heavy hitters who do a lot of damage to counteract his crystals, such as Death Arms or Mirako. Another option are long-range fighters, such as Snipe, because his quirk is best suited for close range. Mimic's quirk, mimicry, allows him to transfer his body and mind into an object and manipulate it like it's his own body. Normally he can only possess objects up to the size of a refrigerator, but trigger is involved, so we shouldn't rely on that. However, when he's immersed in an object he has to manifest a body part in order to take in his surroundings, so that's a weak point that can be used. We want heroes who are maneuverable or immobilizes, such as Rocklock, Hawks, or Mirako. Everyone was quiet, as the detective and Mirai were taking notes on everything that Deku was saying. When he talked, he had a captivating presence, drawing in all of the pro heroes. It was impressive, seeing his brain work in person. That was amazing, little listener. Hisashi exclaimed. The only thing keeping the windows from being shattered was Shouda's instinct in turning off his husband's quirk. It's amazing to see your mind work in real time. Owada chimed in. Absolutely fascinating, Tensei said. Each compliment made the kid flush more and more red. Shouda snickered, quietly petting Eraserpaw. Mirai and Naomasa were going over the 3 files the kid had forked over. So, here's what we're going to do, Naomasa said, calling attention back to him. We're going to focus on the 3 dealers we've identified already, as we're confident of their popular spots and should be easier to catch. Eraserhead will be going to apprehend Mida, with Snipe as backup. Ingenium and Rocklock will be going to apprehend Inakata. Midnight will be going to apprehend Iwakari, with 4th Kind as backup. The Night-Eye agency will continue working with Deku on the case. Deku had finished scribbling something on a page of his notebook, then pulled it out and pushed it to the 2 heroes. Based on their routes, these are the places and times that are best for bringing them into custody, he said. The info was already in the folders, but I figured it'd make it easier if it was written out. I believe the meeting is adjourned then. Mirai stood up, his sidekicks following suit. I'll get in contact with the heroes. The missions will be coordinated over the HN. Well, I don't know about you, but I would like a pastry before I have to go, Nemuri winked. Shouda just huffed at the ploy. It was obvious she wanted to pry more information out of Broccoli-chan. Oh, I can get some pastries for everyone, Deku perked up, slipping his notebook and laptop into the duffel bag behind the counter. He went to the back, and everyone waved goodbye to the Night-Eye agency as they left. When he came back, he set down a pastry in front of everyone. Now, Izuku, Kigo said, commanding everyone's attention. We need to talk. Chapter 9, a very important talk. Izuku chuckled, the signature I'm in danger chuckle. What do we have to talk about? Problem child, Eraserhead leveled a glare at him, having his phone in his hand for some reason. Why did Hawk say that he had to talk you down from a roof? Izuku checked his phone, sending the pro hero a betrayed look. Hawks looked away with a whistle, drumming his fingers on the table. Guys, I'm alright, he said, and absolutely did not shrink back at the skeptical looks from everyone. He said he's probably not going to jump anymore, which I do believe, Hawks said. But he also said that he's living alone, and I in good conscience cannot allow that. Okay, but did he tell you why he was going to jump? Ms. Joke asked, ignoring Izuku's small I'm right here. Yeah, but I'm not going to say anything unless Izuku does, he responded. Suddenly everyone's eyes were on Izuku. He looked down at his pastry, playing with his fingers, running them over the scars there. A band had settled around his chest, made out of his insecurities. Sure, Hawks had accepted his uselessness quirklessness, but what about the rest of the heroes? He was overthinking, he just needed to blurt it out. I'm quirkless. The silence was thick, almost suffocating. He kept staring at his hands, not wanting to look up at the heroes he admired, seeing the disgust or pity on their faces. He traced the scars on his arms, remembering how he got them. Shame, guilt, disgust, grief all coiled in his gut, tears starting to water up in the corners of his eyes. Izuku stood up, the screeching of the chair cutting through the silence. I'm sorry, he choked out, I'll just go dash. He squeaked as he was grabbed, being pulled into a hug by the person right next to him. Present Mike, his brain helpfully supplied. He could hear other chairs moving in the background, and he felt more pairs of hands wrapping around him. Before he knew it, he was in a massive group hug. Present Mike was holding him from the front, Ms. Joke from the back, Midnight from the left and Ingenium from the right. Eraserhead had put one hand on his shoulder, and Hawks had glomped onto the hug, wrapping everyone in his wings. Izuku sniffled, letting tears roll down his face silently. He pulled back after a few moments, wiping the tears off of his face and taking a big bite of pastry. He was still tucked into Present Mix side, Ms. Joke on his other side. Everyone else moved around to the front, picking up their pastries and continuing to eat. Midoriya, you're amazing, Ms. Joke said, getting some nods from the other heroes. Seriously, we were all sure you had some sort of analysis quirk, but the fact that you do that by yourself is impressive. Never meet Nedzu, Eraserhead grumbled. You'd take over the world. The UA teachers all shivered collectively at the thought. Hawks ruffled his hair, and Izuku squealed a little. Seriously, though, you're a genius. And challenging those pro heroes. That was fucking amazing. Seriously, you gave no fucks. Midnight wiped a fake tear from her eye. Truly inspiring. Izuku shrugged. That was more of a today thing. That should be an everyday thing. That was beautiful, Present Mike said. Izuku smiled, as Present Me rubbed the side of his face. Thanks, guys, he said as tears slipped down his face at the praise. He heard praise more often from the pro heroes, but on bad days like today, it really brought out the Midoriya genes. Oh, don't cry Broccoli-chan. Ms. Jokes said. Izuku chuckled, wiping them away. It's okay, they're happy tears. Speaking of which, we should talk about something, Detective Tsukashi said, frowning down at his phone. Is this true? He presented the phone screen to Izuku, who scanned it. It was a set of private DMS between the detective and Hawks, explaining the fact that his father had fucked off and his mom just died. Izuku shot a look at Hawks, who looked away and started whistling innocently. No. Detective Tsukashi gave him a disappointed look. Anyways, the kid needs a place to stay. Izuku started sputtering as 5 heroes shouted dibs. Said 5 heroes started bickering about who was going to take him home. Izuku was slowly going more and more red, scooting over to where Eraserhead and the detective were speaking with each other. Eventually, Eraserhead activated his quirk, and everyone quieted down, turning to the 2 men. Alright, first of all, I'm taking Midnight out of the running for foster parent, Detective Tsukashi said. I know you'd make a great parent, but CPS would never sign off on that, and I'd rather not have a lawsuit. Fine, Midnight pouted, but sat down. Anyways, I think you're all missing the point. Detective Tsukashi turned to Izuku. He should choose. Izuku blanched, and all of a sudden was met with 4 heroes doing their best impression of puppy dogs. His inner fanboy was freaking out, but he managed to stutter something out without making a complete fool of himself. Can I come back to that tomorrow? Do you have a place to stay? Eraserhead asked gruffly, concern thinly veiled in his voice. Izuku nodded. Yeah, being Deku allows me to pay the bills. Really, I'll be okay. What if someone moved in with you? Hawks said, his wings vibrating. I know that the others can't just drop everything and try to rearrange things, but I don't have an apartment, and I needed a hotel room anyways. I'll stay the night, make sure everything's okay, and we'll figure it out from there. Everyone nodded, although Eraserhead looked at Hawks a little suspiciously. Your safety is our priority, Detective Tsukashi said. I'm okay with it if you are, Izuku. Yeah, and if you don't want Hawks to stay over, one of us can, Ms. Joke said. I'm gonna be here for the next month for the raid anyways, I'm already just crashing at Nemuri's place. No, Hawks is okay, Izuku said, swinging his duffel bag on his shoulder. Hawks put his hand on his shoulder, giving him a reassuring smile. We'll figure this out, alright. Izuku looked up at the faces of his friends, giving him reassuring smiles, and smiled in return. Maybe everything will be alright. Chapter 10, Settling In. Kigo suddenly checked out the apartment, following after Midoriya. It was small and homely, pictures of him and presumably his mom hung up all over the place. The couch had a couple of crocheted blankets and was covered in cat fur. Papers were strewn all over the kitchen table, and the kitchen was messy but physically clean. There were hand towels with little frogs embroidered hanging on the stove, possibly a gift from a co-worker. The first door he saw was closed, with an All Might nameplate that said Izuku. A very loud meow drew his attention, and he zeroed in on the calico cat coming from the kitchen. I know, I'm sorry, Midoriya said to her, as she sat down in front of him and started meowing. I'm getting you dinner now. Kigo flopped on the couch, letting his wings spread out as he listened to Midoriya getting sushi. He assumed she was sushi, her dinner. There was a surprising amount of plants in the apartment, pots holding various ferns and flowers. I didn't think you'd have so many plants, he commented idly. Oh, we didn't, cause no one would be at home to water them, Midoriya responded from the kitchen, and he could hear the kid prepping something. But ever since I transferred to online school, my mom insisted that I get a whole bunch of plants. She said that keeping the windows open and having a bunch of plants would make sure I got fresh air. Do you want some water? If you're offering. Kigo scanned the spread of papers on the coffee table. They were all written in some sort of code that he couldn't understand, probably his analysis as Deku. He recognized a picture of Snipe. What's this? Midoriya came over with 2 glasses of water, Susie trailing after him. Oh, Snipe commissioned me for an analysis on him. It's mostly finished, I've just got to clean it up and make it readable. He hummed, taking a glass of water and scooting over on the couch. Midoriya sat down next to him, and he stretched out one wing, draping it around the kid. Susie jumped up, climbing over his lap and settling right between the two, purring contentedly as Kigo took off one glove and started scratching behind her ears. This is Susie? He asked casually, already smitten. At Midoriya's nod, he continued. Where's the name from? He flushed, looking away from the hero. Well, I found her in a sushi takeout box. Kigo laughed, startling the cat, and Midoriya smacked him lightly. Your names really are as bad as your fashion sense. Coming from pro hero Hawks. He snarked back, one eyebrow raised. Touché. They both jumped as ugly squawking noises started coming from Kigo's jacket pocket. The hero fumbled, pulling out his phone and groaning at the caller ID. Sorry kiddo, I gotta take this. Midoriya nodded, picking up his duffel bag from where he had plopped it at the end of the couch. I've got to change anyways, he said, giving him a wave as he went into his room. Kigo sighed, mentally bracing himself as he answered the call. Hawks, his handler droned. Do you have any new information? I do, he said. I met Deku face to face at the meeting on the trigger case. He didn't give out his name or personal information, but we have a description. Excellent. What is it? University student, early 20s, Kigo lied easily, having been trained to be able to manipulate people with ease. His hair was dyed green, and he had natural green eyes. Freckles too. That does fit the profile we've constructed, his handler said. Any information on All Might? No new information. I observed him, but it didn't yield anything. Fine. Anyways, we have a new objective for you. Oh. Kigo took sips of his water. Lying made him thirsty, sue him. We need you to get a teaching position at U.A. Kigo spit out his water, hacking out his lungs. What? I don't have any teaching experience. Well, you've got 10 months to prepare some teaching credentials. His handler seemed unamused. You have your orders. We'll arrange for an apartment in Musuda Fudash. No need, he said quickly. I've got that handled. Very well. The phone clicked off. Kigo groaned, flopping face first onto the couch. Are you okay, Hawks? Midoriya asked. The winged hero looked up to see him standing there sheepishly, looking concerned. He was wearing a present mic tee and a pair of sweatpants. I heard you choking. I'm fine kid. Kigo sat up, patting the couch next to him. And call me Kigo. Takamai Kigo. It's only fair you know my name. I okay ha I mean Kigo-san. He raised an eyebrow as the kid sat down. Just Kigo's fine. Okay, Kigo sa Kigo. His brows furrowed as he thought, sitting crisscross applesauce. Susie apparently took that as an opportunity, jumping up and making herself comfortable in his lap. What was that phone call about? Kigo sighed. Well, apparently I'm supposed to become a teacher at U.A. You're gonna what? Midoriya gaped. Do you even have a license? No, but apparently I'm gonna get one within the next 10 months, Kigo groaned. And then there's the issue of moving. Oh, right, you don't actually have an apartment here, Midoriya trailed off when Susie bumped his palm with her face. He smiled fondly, continuing to give her pets. I'd like to propose something, actually, Kigo said carefully, making sure to keep his posture relaxed as Midoriya looked up at him nervously. If you're okay with it, I can move in here. You keep the apartment, you're not living alone, and I have a place that's relatively nearby. Midoriya's eyes widened. Then he started mumbling, about as fast as he was analyzing that crystal villain, and even Kigo's advanced hearing couldn't pick it up. Susie was squirming in his lap, unhappy that she wasn't getting pets. Kigo PS the cat, lightly scratching the couch beside him. She perked up, jumping out of Midoriya's lap and gracefully walking over to him. He cooed a little as he pet her, and he was unashamed to admit that he was calling her a true queen, an angel, and a little baby. Midoriya was broken out of his muttering, and smiled at the scene. Well, if Susie likes you, I suppose you can stay. Normally I would say something sarcastic in return, but I've been blessed by an angel today, Kigo sniped back, continuing to pet the little creature who had migrated to his lap. Midoriya chuckled, and the hero could see him taking a picture with his phone, before scooting over and also starting to pet the cat. Well, Midoriya dash. Izuku, the kid interrupted. If I'm calling you Kigo, you can call me Izuku. Right. Kigo smiled at me Izuku. I don't mind crashing on the couch if you don't have a guest room, but dash. Oh, it's okay, you can use my mom's, Izuku flushed, looking down at Susie. It feels weird for me to move in there, since I've already got my own. Besides, you have big wings, you need the bigger bed. If you're okay with it, Kigo shrugged, hiding how touched he was. He raised an eyebrow when Izuku scooted over, pulling out a pen and starting to pull papers on the table to him. What are you doing? Oh, you don't mind if I work, do you? Kid, it's dash. He looked up at the clock, 11 at night. So? Izuku shrugged. I wake up at 10:30 in the morning. Kigo tried to hide a yawn. Lucky brat, he smacked him in the back of the head, then stood up. Well, I'm gonna turn in for the night. You gonna be good out here? Izuku just leveled a look at him. I'll be fine. The hero hummed in acknowledgement, stretching his back and wings. If you need anything, let me know. When the kid nodded, he turned around, making his way to the master bedroom. Giving the kid one last peek over his shoulder, and taking a picture to send to the group chat, he smiled fondly. Izuku was leaning over the table, present mix radio playing softly while he muttered up a storm and chewed on the end of his pen. The kid's gonna be alright. UA. Teachers and Company, 11:28 p.m. Deku-chan, Izuku, Eraser Eraserhead, Anya Amesova, Midnight, Fusro. Present Mike, God, Nedzu, Silver the Hedgehog, Ingenium, Captain Jack Sparrow, Ms. Joke, Jack Bugs Bunny, Mirako, are online. Deku-chan, sorry for worrying you guys. Deku-chan, I'm home W Kigo and he's gonna be moving in. Deku-chan, he's sleepin' RN. Eraser Dad, why is Hawks moving in? Anya Amesova, and when were you two on first name basis? Fusro. I wanna be on first name basis W the little listener, sad face. Deku-chan, you guys can. Deku-chan, also apparently he's supposed to become a UA teacher? We just found out like 20 minutes ago so we don't know a whole lot. Eraser Dad, this year's gonna be a nightmare. God, well, Hawks can meet me in my office tomorrow and we can go over his credentials then. Deku-chan, he'll let him know when he wakes up. Silver the Hedgehog, anyways first name basis. Silver the Hedgehog, I'm Itza Tensei. Captain Jack Sparrow, Fukakeo Emi. Anya Amesova, Kayama Nemuri. Jack Bugs Bunny, Yosaji Yamarumi. Fusro. Yamada Hisashi. Deku-chan, thank you guys for trusting me W this. Anya Amesova, you are a broccoli-chan. Anya Amesova, trust in the broccoli. Jack Bugs Bunny, wait. Jack Bugs Bunny, Deku is broccoli-chan. Silver the Hedgehog, OOP. Silver the Hedgehog, I forgot you weren't there. Deku-chan, Izuku, Eraser Dad, Eraserhead, Anya Amesova, Midnight, Fusro. Present Mike, God, Nedzu, Silver the Hedgehog, Ingenium, Captain Jack Sparrow, Ms. Joke, Jack Bugs Bunny, Mirako, and Falcon, Hawks, are online. Falcon, Deku8work.png. Falcon, it him. Deku-chan, Kigo. Deku-chan, I thought you were asleep. Falcon, well you keep blowing up my phone. Falcon, aren't you supposed to be working? Deku-chan, shit. Deku-chan, bye everyone. Eraser Dad, language. Anya Amesova, but bye. Captain Jack Sparrow, bye. Fusro. Goodbye little listener. God, see you tomorrow, Deku. Anya Amesova, Fear. Seinue. Teachers, 11:43 p.m. Nedzu, there's been an interesting development. Cementos, what's going on now? Nedzu, Deku is going to be an interesting student next year. Ectoplasm, he's going to be what? Vlad King, please don't tell me a literal child has been running circles around the pro hero community for a year now. Nedzu, smiley face, power loader, Nedzu, for the love of everything you hold dear, please don't put him in my class. Nedzu, we'll see how everything plays out. Nedzu, I'm going to be meeting him face to face tomorrow. Hound dog, alright, I'll let Shouten know that he'll have to change his heroic ethics class to include the new laws for when Nedzu and Deku take over the world. Snipe, I don't get paid enough for this. Chapter 11, Nedzu's tea time. Izuku was nervous, running a brush in his hair one last time. He was wearing the best outfit he had, which was a dark leather jacket that used to be his father's before he left, a t-shirt that said bowtie, and dark jeans. He wore his usual high tops, because he was attached and definitely not because they were his only pair, and he was desperately trying to tame his hair, even though he knew it would be no use. He had one of his messenger bags over his shoulder, the one with a fuck ton of hero pins that he hoped could pass off as respectful homage rather than fanboy. Kigo, the lucky bastard, could get away with just wearing his hero costume for the meeting. You good, Izuku? He asked from the living room. You been in the bathroom for like 20 minutes. Izuku groaned, abandoning the brush and double-checking he had everything. The analysis for Snipe, his laptop, that's about it? Coming out of the bathroom, he frowned as he saw Kigo fluttering around the kitchen table, with plates that had black crusty things on them. What the fuck are those? Izuku asked, pointing at the lumps of coal. The Birdman had the audacity to look sheepish next to his hideous creations. I tried to make breakfast. That's a monstrosity is what that is, Izuku said, picking up the plates and dumping breakfast into the trash despite Kigo's squawking. We'll pick up breakfast on the way there. You don't know how to cook either, do you? Kigo asked accusingly. Izuku scoffed, adjusting the bag on his shoulders. I do, I'm just lazy. Besides, if we don't leave now, we're going to be late. Kigo swore, and Izuku laughed at him, closing and locking the door behind them. He pulled out the 2 Pop-Tart packets he had in his jacket pocket, handing one of them to the hero. Get on my back, Kigo said, while ripping open the Pop-Tart bag and shoving one into his face. Izuku beamed, jumping onto his bag as the hero stumbled over. Kami, kid, you're heavy. Fly, my pretty. Izuku cackled, shoving a Pop-Tart into his face. Kigo squawked through his mouthful of breakfast, jumping up and into the air as soon as they were outside. 10/10, easily the best Uber he's had in a while. To say that Kigo was nervous was an understatement. No, he was sweating bullets as he sat in front of Nedzu, his feathers twitching as he felt the mammal take him apart with his gaze. But really, anyone would be nervous in his position, he was facing down the smartest creature alive. Would you like some tea? Nedzu asked, pouring into 2 teacups. Peppermint tea is very good for nerves. Of course, I would love some. His wings twitched as he took the cup from the mammal's paws, taking a careful sip as if it might hurt him. The hero wouldn't put it past him. It was clean. And delicious. Though that might be just the mind games. Damn mouse. It's not often that we get a top hero asking for a position, Nedzu talked carefully, and it felt like with every word the mammal was slowly peeling him apart like an onion. Normally, we wouldn't be available for a new hire, but there are circumstances that may require a second heroics teacher assistant. Oh. Kigo asked conversationally, trying to keep his wings from twitching. The only reason he was able to sit down at all and maintain some composure was that the principal had brought out a stool for him. Otherwise he would be anxiously pacing, which would be very bad for the whole staying composed thing. But I'm getting ahead of myself, Nedzu took a sip of his tea. Let's start with this, what are your teaching qualifications? Other than being a hero, we both know that what makes a good hero and a good teacher are different. Kigo cleared his throat, reciting the little speech he whipped up and memorized last night. I am currently working on getting my Bachelor's of Education online, which I understand won't get me to the next school year, but it should give me enough experience to at least be a teacher's assistant until I finish my degree in a few years and get my license. Of course, of course. You'll find we are very flexible when it comes to licenses, since heroics teachers are in demand, especially good ones. Nezu took another sip of tea. How do you intend to balance your hero work and teaching work? This was another point Kigo had planned out. I am handing over primary control of my agency in Fukuoka to Phoenix, and I'm opening a new branch in Musudafu that will be in the primary control of Karalax. I'll be in touch with both of them, and I'll carry out patrols after school and grading when I have the time, but it will be put on the back burner to my teaching duties. The mammal calmly sipped his tea. Why are you considering teaching? The underlying question was, why are you considering teaching now? Kigo sighed. He tossed and turned last night. He knew that he was going to be asked that. He agonized over what he was going to say, but he landed on the decision that he knew was going to have consequences. I'll be completely honest with you. Those 6 words alone had the mammal putting down his cup, tilting his head in interest. The HPSC pushed for me to get a teaching position. They knew about All Might acquiring his position. But I'm less offering my skills as a teacher and more my position as an insider. Interesting, but how do I know that you're not being transparent just to get in and siphon information back to the commission? Kigo smiled. He prepared for that question. I have information that could potentially bring the commission down if it came to light. Oh. Let me tell you a story. Izuku waved sheepishly as Kigo closed the large door behind him. He sighed, looking around, and let his feet carry him as he explored UA. Classes were still in session, so he didn't meet any students in the hallways. He admired the scenery outside the massive glass windows, and the pictures of various alumni or student projects, in the case of the modern art history classroom. Eventually he found that he had wandered to the teacher's lounge. He briefly debated going on in, but came to the conclusion that he didn't care enough. Ever since yesterday and being left alone on the roof, Izuku found that he was simply out of fucks to give. It doesn't help that he's had a pulsing headache for the past 3 days. He slowly opened the door and peeked inside. He still had manners, thank you very much. Izawa-san, because yeah, he had first name approval, but it felt weird to use still, and Blad King were sitting next to each other at desks, presumably doing paperwork, while Power Loader was doing his paperwork in a desk a row across from them. Kayama-san, Snipe, and Lunch Rush were standing around the coffee maker and chatting. Izawa looked up first, being the underground pro, and just grunted in acknowledgement at Izuku's presence before going back to his paperwork. Vlad King didn't even look up, presumably just trusting Izawa, and Power Loader looked up. His entrance didn't even disturb the conversation happening around the coffee maker, which from the sound of it was a very heated argument about student shipping. He wasn't going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Excuse me, who are you? Power Loader asked, bringing the attention of Vlad King and the heroes around the coffee maker. Of course, Kayama-san just squealed. Broccoli-chan. She ran over and pulled him into a hug. Izuku flushed bright red as he felt his face squished against her chest. It's so good to see you again. I didn't expect you to be here so soon. Yeah, Kigo's meeting with Nezu right now. He pulled back out of the hug, so the heroine slung an arm over his shoulder and dragged him to the other heroes. Broccoli-chan. Lunch Rush asked. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Power Loader coming over too. Oh. Izuku threw open his bag, pulling out the green folder and holding it out to Snipe. This is yours. I know I could have sent it over the HN, but I figured I could hand it to you directly since I came to UA in person. Wait dash Snipe opened the folder, flipping through the pages. You're Deku. Oh Kami, it's true, Vlad King muttered. I thought the rat was pulling our leg. Power Loader shouted. Yeah, I am. Izuku scratched the back of his head nervously. I didn't tell anyone my age, obviously. I didn't want to discount my credibility dash. I thought we told you this, it obviously just makes you more impressive. Kayama-san exclaimed. No, you didn't, Izuku said, adjusting the strap of his bag. You all sent me your names, then told Mirako that I was also Broccoli-chan, and then I had to go back to work to let Kigo sleep. Wait a minute, you're on first name basis with Hawks? Vlad King asked. I mean, he is moving into my apartment, Izuku deadpanned, then shrugged. Besides, Susie likes him. Kayama-san gasped. Do you have more Susie pics? Izuku smiled sheepishly, pulling out his phone and opening up to the gallery, letting the heroine scroll through his folder of sushi pics and show the other heroes. "This is very impressive, kid," Snipe muttered. "Your reputation holds up." He dug around his costume pockets, eventually pulling out his phone. "I'll send the money right over." Izuku nodded a quick thanks, then snatched his phone back. "I can send more sushi pics in the group chat," he said, stuffing it back into his pockets. "So, I'm presuming you want to go to UA, if you're here." Lunch rush started, and continued at Izuku's small nod. "Which course are you planning on going into?" "I used to really want to be a hero when I was small, but it's pretty much unattainable for me now," Izuku shrugged sadly, to the confusion of most of the heroes and the small sad nod of Kayama-san. "So I'm going into the analysis business. Use your greatest strength, yeah no. Support course, then, power loader side. Which means I'll probably be your homeroom teacher." "The analysis track is in the support course?" Izuku asked. "I thought it would be in management." "No, apparently not," Power Loader shook his head. "Honestly, I forgot we even have that track. There hasn't been anyone in it for years. Which means you'll most likely be the only student, which means you'll probably be Nezu's only student." Vlad King trailed off, and the room collectively shuddered. Izuku gave his most innocent smile, which didn't seem to reassure the room. "It's okay, I won't take over the world," he said cheerfully. "Even I know my limits." "There's a difference between your limits and the power of Nezu," Vlad King pointed out. "I think you guys are overestimating me. I'm not that bad," Izuku said. "Don't believe him." The door was slammed open, and everyone watched as Kigo slammed into the door frame. "Ow ow ow, don't believe him. He really is. I caught him trying to train the raccoons last night. Hey, you'll be thanking me when the 3rd Raccoon Battalion saves your ass." Izuku sniped back, then blinked when he realized where he was when he just swore. Kigo was getting himself back onto his feet, and Nezu was standing next to him in the doorway. "Hello, Deku," Nezu exclaimed, bouncing over to him. "Am I a mouse? A bear? A dog? I am Nezu, the principal of UA. Actually, you look like an albino toad," Izuku said. The room went deadly quiet. Then Nezu started laughing. "Midoriya Izuku, next year is going to be really fun." Chapter 12, Katsudon and Conversations. Izuku was flying on Cloud 9. He's collected a bunch of signatures from pro heroes, he's still a fanboy, sue him, got a personal tour of UA, and he's currently being treated to Lunch Rush's Katsudon. "That's it," Izuku mumbled through bites of food. "Lunch Rush is my favorite." "What the hell?" Kigo squawked. They were both sitting in a small room off of the school's kitchen, basically the cafeteria but for the teachers. Kigo was eating some yakitori, cannibal, which was also made by Lunch Rush. "I mean, you're cool too, but this Katsudon is literal heaven. I saved your life. But this Katsudon." Kigo groaned, and Izuku let himself cackle as he continued shoving Katsudon into his face. It wasn't the most attractive sight, but sue him, he was hungry. "I'm sure that Shigeko will be happy to hear that," an elderly lady said from behind him. Izuku turned around, his eyes going wide. "Recovery girl!" he exclaimed, his eyes practically sparkling. "The youthful heroine." She smiled slyly. "Well, it's not every day the youngins recognize me. I've heard a lot about you." Izuku flushed with a squeak. How? "I got to witness the younger members of the UA staff freak out when Nezu announced that you could be a student here." "What?" Kigo stopped bothering to hide his laughter by now, doubling over. Izuku flushed, smacking him while even Recovery Girl started chuckling. "Why are you so mean?" Izuku whined, slowly slumping further down into his seat. That just made Kigo laugh harder. After the laughter tapered out, Recovery Girl came over. "Anyways, Nemuri, Hisashi, and Shouta wanted me to check up on you, based on something you sent them last night." Izuku raised an eyebrow in confusion. "I don't think I sent a concerning text in the group chat." Kigo looked at him weirdly. "Do you not remember the text you sent? After I went back to bed after being assaulted by your raccoon army." "No. Check the group chat. UA. Teachers and Company, 3:17 a.m. Deku-chan, Izuku, and Pink Panther, Tsukachi, are online. Deku-chan, I feel like shit and my head hurts and I'm texting up th analysis for gang orca. Honestly I'm gonna fucking give snipes to him in person. I'm so fucking tired. I need coffee. My god. Zlk Japes clashed. Pink Panther, Deku. Oh, yeah, I can see how that would be concerning, Izuku muttered, scratching his head. I was wondering why gang orca's analysis wasn't finished this morning. What's this about headaches, dearie? Oh, I've had on and off headaches the past few weeks, Izuku said. They usually appear about an hour after I start working on analyses on my computer, and they usually don't go away until I go to bed and wake up the next morning. It sounds like a case of computer vision syndrome, Recovery hummed, thumping her cane on the ground. All those screens give you a headache. Just stop using as many screens and you'll be fine. Your other option is a pair of blue light glasses, Kigo spoke up. I know some of the interns and sidekicks at the area use them. Yeah, I can't really stop using screens, Izuku muttered. I use the Hero Network to deliver my analyses. Well, I do have to go to the area tomorrow to get some paperwork, Kigo spoke through a mouthful of food. We can get you a pair while we're out. Don't talk with your mouth full. Recovery girl scolded, after smacking him with her cane. Izuku almost choked on his lunch. Izuku sighed, flopping face first onto the couch. He was excited this morning so he skipped his morning coffee, but now at 2 in the afternoon, he was drained. He could hear Susie snoring right next to his head and he was honestly about to join her. Hey, Izuku, Kigo said from somewhere in the apartment. Izuku just grumbled in response. A red feather tickled his nose, and he sneezed. I know, you want to take a nap, but we've got to talk first. Izuku groaned, but sat up, and leaned back on Kigo when he finally sat down on the couch. What do we need to talk about? Kigo made a clicking sound with his tongue absent-mindedly. We need to talk about yesterday. But I thought we were done talking about yesterday, Izuku whined, letting himself flop onto Kigo, getting a noof out of the man. I know kiddo, Kigo sighed. But we really should talk about it? Izuku grumbled, looking up at Kigo properly with a glare. Apparently it didn't register as a glare because the Birdman snorts. So, what are we talking about? Kigo thoughtfully clicked again, wrapping an arm around Izuku's shoulder. The bullying. That sobered Izuku up real quickly, and he was about to get up, but Kigo's arm kept him from moving too much. The hero's other hand was in his hair, giving him a gentle head massage. What about it? Izuku asked. We want some names, Kigo said, and Izuku raised an eyebrow. Rumi suggested to just start burning down middle schools until we hit the right one, but I figured that it would be better if we just heard it from you. Mirako Kigo, that's just arson. Izuku sputtered. Besides, it's not worth it? What do you mean, not worth it? I mean he took a moment to collect his thoughts. I'm not going to school in person anymore. I should just focus on my future rather than waste energy on the past, you know. If it's weighing on you enough to almost lead you to commit suicide, it's not just in the past. Kigo deadpanned. The closure would be good for you. Besides, the heroes would be mostly taking care of it. Alright. Izuku shrugged. I went to Aldera Elementary, and then Aldera Middle School. What about the names of the bullies? He just shook his head. They're kids. The only ones who would go so far as to physically hurt me and use their quirks were mostly the upperclassmen, and I never knew any of their names. The words and flowers aren't harmless either, Kigo pointed out. And there's only so long that they're kids is a good enough excuse. It's mostly the teachers though, Izuku argued. No one would ever step in, some would even encourage it. The nurses would refuse to treat me, and the one time I reported when I got beat up to the principal, he put a mark of fighting on my record instead. I just think that they deserve a second chance, you know. Including Bakugo? Kigo asked with a raised eyebrow. Including Bakugo. He's always wanted to be a hero, and he'll make a good one, if someone helped him pull the stick out of his ass. They both laughed, startling Sushi, who was sitting in Kigo's lap. After they settled down, Izuku spoke up again. I'm not saying there shouldn't be consequences, just that he should have a second chance. And if he doesn't improve even with the second chance, that's on him, Kigo said firmly. Izuku's only response was a nod. He was starting to drift off. Kigo's fingers on his scalp did wonders. Alright, I'll let you sleep, Kigo said, adjusting them so that Kigo was laying on his side, wings over the side of the couch, and Izuku was laying on top of him. Izuku sighed in contentment. Wake me up for dinner. Of course, fledgling. And that's the episode. Thanks a ton for coming and hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Ciao for now.